The silence in the executive boardroom was so thick you could slice it with a knife. 24 pairs of eyes darted between me, standing at the doorway with 2 designer suitcases, and Melissa, the 23-year-old intern who had been sleeping with my husband for the past 7 months. I hadn't planned on crashing the quarterly budget meeting, but timing, like karma, has a wicked sense of humor. "Delivery for Melissa Parker," I announced, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "I believe these belong with you now." I'll never forget how the color drained from her face, that perfect, filtered for Instagram face that had smiled at me so innocently at the company Christmas party, while she was secretly texting my husband under the table. I watched her perfect French manicure, the one I was paying for through my husband's credit card, tremble as she gripped the edge of the conference table. My husband wasn't even there. Of course not. Regional sales directors always had important client meetings on Thursday afternoons. Except his important meeting for the past 7 months had been in the Marriott 2 blocks from the office, always booked under his corporate account because he was just that careless. Or that arrogant. "I'm sorry, who are you?" The CEO finally broke the silence, his Mont Blanc pen suspended midair. I smiled. Not the broken smile of a betrayed wife, but the calculated smile of a woman who had reached her limit. "I'm Alexandra Reynolds, Daniel's wife. Or soon-to-be ex-wife, I should say." I wheeled the luggage further into the room. I just thought since Melissa has been enjoying my husband, she might as well enjoy his belongings too. Someone near the back let out a muffled, "Oh my God!" But I kept my eyes locked on Melissa. Her shame wasn't even the best part. The best part was watching the realization dawn across her face that her carefully crafted future, the one where she slept her way into a marriage with a senior executive, was unraveling in real time, broadcast to the entire upper management team. I hadn't always been this person. The Alexandra from 3 weeks ago would have crumbled into a heap of tears and self-doubt. That Alexandra died the night I found their messages. It was such a cliché how I discovered it. A notification that popped up on his iPad while he was in the shower. "Can't wait to taste you again tomorrow." I remember staring at those words, my brain refusing to process them at first. This wasn't supposed to happen to us. We had the waterfront condo, the membership at the country club, the plans for children next year once his promotion came through. 15 years together, 5 years of marriage, 3 years of fertility treatments that I endured while he was working late. The mathematics of betrayal is always so precise in hindsight. "Mrs. Reynolds, I think there's been some misunderstanding." The HR director started to stand, but I cut her off with a raised hand. "There's no misunderstanding. I have all the evidence right here." I patted my handbag where I kept the printed screenshots, hotel receipts, and the GPS history I'd downloaded from his car's navigation system. I just wanted to personally deliver what belongs to Melissa now. I unzipped the first suitcase. Right on top was his favorite cashmere sweater, the gray one I'd given him last Christmas. I picked it up and tossed it to her. She caught it reflexively, horror spreading across her face. "He likes when you scratch his back while wearing this. Light touches, not your nails. He's sensitive about scratches showing at the gym." Someone in the room stifled a laugh. It might have been the CFO. I wasn't done. I reached into the suitcase again and pulled out his monogrammed shaving kit. "He needs his special face cream every night or he gets cranky, the expensive one from Switzerland." I tossed it across the table where it skidded to a stop in front of her. "Oh, and he's allergic to shellfish. Breaks out in hives all over. But you probably already know that from all those intimate dinners while I was visiting my dying mother in the hospital." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. I watched Melissa's throat work as she tried to swallow. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape route, for sympathy, for anything. She found none. "Alexandra," she finally whispered. "Oh, we're on a first-name basis now? How nice." I tilted my head. "You know what's funny? All those nights he told me he was mentoring you. She has so much potential," he'd say. I actually felt proud of him for supporting women in business. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just the hollow echo of a woman who had discovered that her entire reality was built on quicksand. The second suitcase has all his toiletries, his medications. He has high blood pressure, by the way, so watch out during those exciting moments and his collection of watches. The Rolex was an anniversary gift from me, but clearly sentiment means nothing to him. So why should it to me? I stepped back from the luggage and adjusted my blazer, the expensive one I'd bought for partner meetings at my own firm. The one that made me feel powerful even when my world was collapsing. I've also taken the liberty of emailing your compliance department all the receipts where company money was used for your little rendezvous. The Marriott, the gifts, the dinners, all on the corporate card. I believe that violates several company policies. Melissa's mascara had started to run, black tears tracking down her flushed cheeks. Good. Let her cry. Let her feel a fraction of what I felt when I discovered that the man I built my life around had been building a separate life behind my back. You can't just... This is a place of business, she stammered. So is my marriage, I replied coldly. Or at least, it was supposed to be a partnership. But Daniel decided to invest elsewhere. Now he can enjoy the returns. As I turned to leave, the weight of what I'd just done hit me like a physical force. My knees nearly buckled. But 15 years with Daniel had taught me one thing: never show weakness in public. So I straightened my spine, pulled my shoulders back, and walked out with all the dignity I could muster. The glass door swung shut behind me with a satisfying click, sealing Melissa in with her humiliation and my husband's belongings. It wasn't until I reached my car in the parking garage that I allowed myself to feel. The steering wheel caught my forehead as I slumped forward, finally releasing the sobs that had been building since I'd packed his bags that morning. They racked through my body like seismic waves, each one threatening to tear me apart from the inside. This wasn't how our story was supposed to go. When I met Daniel during my final year of law school, he was the TA who stayed late to help students prepare for the bar exam. He had this way of making complex concepts simple, of making everyone feel like they mattered. He made me feel like I mattered. He proposed on the ferry to Bainbridge Island, down on one knee as the Seattle skyline glittered behind him. "You're the only certainty in my life," he'd said. The diamond caught the last rays of sunset as he slid it onto my finger. I'd believed him. God, how I'd believed him. We built our life carefully, like architects designing a cathedral. Every decision was mutual. Which jobs to take, which condo to buy, when to start trying for a family. Or so I thought. The first round of IVF failed. "It's okay," he'd said, holding me as I cried. "We have time." The second round failed too. And the third. Each time, I blamed my body for its betrayal. Each time, he assured me we were in it together. Now I understood he'd been in a different kind of together all along. The affair had started, as far as I could piece together, shortly after Melissa joined the company as an intern in the marketing department. She was bright, ambitious, and 15 years younger than me. I'd met her at the company picnic last summer and thought she seemed sweet. I even told Daniel to look out for her, to mentor her like others had mentored him. Mentor her. The irony made me laugh through my tears. A hoarse, broken sound that echoed in my empty car. The signs had been there all along. The late nights, the weekend emergencies at the office, the sudden passion for fitness that had him hitting the gym at odd hours, the new cologne I never bought him, the way he guarded his phone like it contained state secrets. But I was too busy holding our life together to see it falling apart. Between my caseload at the firm, the hormone treatments, caring for my mother through her final months of cancer, and maintaining our social calendar, I had no energy left to be suspicious. What a fool I'd been. 2 weeks ago, my mother was finally at peace after her long battle with cancer. The house felt emptier without the hospice nurses coming and going, without the oxygen machine's constant hum. Daniel had been supportive throughout her illness, if you count showing up for family dinners occasionally and asking how she was doing before changing the subject to work. The night after her funeral, I'd expected him to hold me, to comfort me. Instead, he claimed an emergency client meeting and left me alone with my grief. That was the night I found the messages. As if losing my mother wasn't enough, I had to lose my husband on the same day. I scrolled through months of their exchanges, each message a knife twisting deeper. The things he said to her, promises, fantasies, complaints about me and our marriage. He told her I was emotionally unavailable, that I was obsessed with getting pregnant, that our marriage had been dead for years, all while I was injecting myself with hormones every night, bruising my stomach and enduring the mood swings, the bloating, the hope and crushing disappointment, all for our future, all while I was holding my mother's hand as cancer took her piece by piece, all while I was keeping our home running, our social obligations met, our finances in order. The messages became physical evidence of every moment he'd lied to my face, every "I love you" that meant nothing, every future plan that was never going to happen. "You're the only woman who truly understands me," he'd written to her. "When can I have you all to myself?" she'd replied. "Soon," he promised. "I'm just waiting for the right time." The right time. As if there's ever a right time to detonate someone's life. I confronted him, of course, that night when he finally came home, reeking of her perfume and hotel soap. His face when he saw me sitting in the dark living room, his iPad illuminated with their messages. I'll never forget it. Not shock, not even guilt, just irritation at being caught. "It's not what you think," he said automatically, the classic line of every cheater in history. "Really? Because I think you've been sleeping with your intern while I've been caring for my dying mother and trying to conceive your child. Please, tell me how that's not exactly what I think." He shifted strategies immediately. "You haven't been present in this marriage for years, Alex. What did you expect?" That's when I knew we were truly over. Not just because he'd betrayed me, but because he was trying to make it my fault. As if my grief, my desire for children, my career ambitions had somehow forced him into another woman's bed. "Get out," I'd told him, my voice deadly quiet. "This is my house too," he'd countered. "The house that my law degree pays the mortgage on? The house that's in my name because your credit was too poor when we bought it? That house?" He'd slept in the guest room that night, and the next. We existed in frigid silence for days, two strangers sharing a space that had once been filled with love, or what I thought was love. "We need to talk about this rationally," he finally said over breakfast 3 days later. "People make mistakes. Marriages survive affairs all the time." I looked at him across our kitchen island. This man I'd loved for 15 years. This stranger who could betray me so completely and then expect forgiveness as his due. "You're right," I said calmly. "We do need to talk rationally." He looked relieved. He thought I was going to take him back. "I've already contacted a divorce attorney. You'll be hearing from them shortly. In the meantime, I need you out of the house by tomorrow." His face contorted with disbelief. "You can't be serious. Where am I supposed to go?" I shrugged. "I don't know, Daniel. Maybe Melissa has room in her studio apartment. Or maybe one of the other women you've been with can take you in." His face told me I'd hit a nerve. There had been others before Melissa. Of course there had. "Alex, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. In fact, I'll help you pack." That night, after Daniel had retreated to the guest room again, I sat alone in our bedroom and mapped out my plan. If there's one thing being a corporate attorney teaches you, it's how to strategize when everything is falling apart. First, I secured my finances. Joint accounts were emptied and the funds moved to my personal account. Not all of them, just my fair share. I wasn't going to steal from him, but I wasn't going to be left vulnerable either. I changed the passwords on all our shared online accounts, from Netflix to the utilities. I called our credit card companies and removed him as an authorized user. Next came the evidence gathering. I'd already taken screenshots of their messages, but I needed more. I contacted a private investigator I knew through work, Janet, a former detective who specialized in infidelity cases. "I don't need proof that he's cheating," I told her over coffee the next morning. "I need proof that he's been using company resources to facilitate it." Janet raised an eyebrow. "Going for the professional jugular. I like it." "He made this professional when he chose his subordinate," I replied. "I'm just following through on the consequences." Within 2 days, Janet delivered a comprehensive file. Hotel charges on the corporate card, expensive dinners labeled as client meetings with no clients present, company car usage logs that matched up with their rendezvous, even a company-sponsored conference in Chicago, where Melissa had been added to the attendee list at the last minute, with no business reason for her to be there. It was more than enough to violate the company's ethics policy and the anti-fraternization rules that Daniel himself had helped draft as part of the executive committee. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. But I wasn't done. While Daniel was at work, I went through his home office meticulously. In his desk drawer, I found a small velvet box. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings I'd never seen before. The receipt was tucked underneath. $3,800. Purchased just 2 weeks ago. My birthday wasn't for months, and our anniversary had passed without any such gift for me. They were for her, bought while my mother was dying. I put the earrings in my jewelry box. They weren't going to adorn Melissa's ears, that was certain. In the same drawer, I found something even more valuable. A thumb drive. I plugged it into my laptop and discovered it contained confidential company information. Strategy documents, financial projections, personnel files. Things Daniel had no business having at home, especially given the industry's compliance regulations. I copied the contents before returning the drive exactly as I'd found it. Insurance, in case things got ugly. By day 3 of my investigation, I'd compiled enough evidence to sink both his marriage and his career. But I wasn't aiming to destroy him professionally. At least, not yet. That would depend on how he handled the divorce. What I wanted first was for both of them to face the social consequences of their actions, the public humiliation they deserved, the office gossip that would follow them both long after I was gone from their lives. That's when I decided on the suitcase delivery. I waited until I knew there would be a maximum audience. Thursday's quarterly budget meeting would have everyone who mattered in attendance, except Daniel, who would be at his standing client meeting at the Marriott with Melissa. Except Melissa had been specifically requested to attend this meeting to present some marketing data. I knew this because I'd called the CEO's assistant the day before, posing as Daniel's assistant, saying Melissa had prepared some crucial information that should be included. But I thought Daniel would be presenting that himself, the assistant had said, confused. Oh, he's got a conflict. He asked specifically for Melissa to attend in his place. I lied smoothly. It worked. Melissa was summoned to the meeting, leaving Daniel alone at the hotel. A small satisfaction, imagining him checking his watch, calling her repeatedly, growing increasingly frustrated as she didn't show up. The morning of my plan, I woke up calm, eerily calm. I spent extra time on my appearance, my most expensive suit, professional makeup, hair blown out to perfection. If I was going to create a scene they'd remember for years, I was going to look damn good doing it. I packed his suitcases methodically, everything neatly folded, organized, his most prized possessions, the things that would hurt him to lose, the watch collection, the signed baseball from his favorite player, the custom suits, the rare scotch. I was thorough. This wasn't going to be a half measure. As I zipped up the second suitcase, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. For the first time since discovering the affair, I wasn't just reacting. I was acting. I was taking control of my narrative. I practiced what I would say in the mirror. Not crying, not screaming. That's what they would expect from the betrayed wife. Instead, I would be composed, withering, the kind of cold fury that burns more than any heated outburst ever could. On the drive to his office building, I rehearsed every possible scenario. What if security stopped me? What if Melissa wasn't there? What if Daniel had unexpectedly shown up to the meeting? But deep down, I knew it would work. Because people like Daniel and Melissa, people who think they can take what they want without consequences, they never expect to be called out. They rely on the social contract, on the assumption that others will avoid confrontation to keep the peace. I was done keeping the peace. I pulled into the visitor parking space at exactly 2:45 p.m. The budget meeting would be in full swing. I checked my lipstick one last time in the rearview mirror, then got out and retrieved the 2 suitcases from my trunk. The security guard at the front desk knew me from previous company events. "Mrs. Reynolds, haven't seen you in a while. Is Daniel expecting you?" I smiled warmly. "It's a surprise. I'm bringing him some things he needs for his business trip tomorrow." He waved me through without a second thought. Too easy. In the elevator, a young man offered to help with the luggage. "Thank you, but I need to do this myself," I told him. The weight of the suitcases was nothing compared to the weight I'd been carrying these past weeks. The executive floor was quiet when I stepped off the elevator. Just the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of voices from the boardroom down the hall. I wheeled the suitcases behind me, their wheels whispering against the plush carpet. Outside the boardroom, I paused. Through the glass walls, I could see them all, the CEO at the head of the table, the row of VPs and directors, and there, halfway down the side, Melissa. She was speaking, pointing to something on the projection screen. Her moment to shine. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and pushed open the door. The seconds after I wheeled those suitcases into the boardroom stretched into an eternity. I watched emotions flicker across Melissa's face like channels changing on a TV. Confusion, recognition, horror, panic, all in the space of a heartbeat. What happened next was better than anything I could have scripted. As I continued tossing Daniel's belongings to Melissa, item by item, narrating their significance with clinical detachment, the room's atmosphere transformed. Initial shock gave way to uncomfortable shifting, then to poorly concealed fascination. By the time I mentioned Daniel's high blood pressure medication, someone actually snorted with suppressed laughter. Melissa had started frantically texting under the table, no doubt warning Daniel, who was probably still waiting at their love nest, confused by her absence. I imagined his phone lighting up with her desperate messages. "She's here. She knows. She's telling everyone." "Your phone seems to be keeping you busy, Melissa," I remarked, pausing my inventory of Daniel's possessions. "Is my husband asking where you are? Feel free to tell him exactly what's happening." Her head snapped up, face flushed crimson. "This is completely unprofessional," she hissed. "Unprofessional?" I repeated, savoring the word. "Like sleeping with your married boss? Like using company resources to fund your affair? That kind of unprofessional?" The CEO, Richard Hartman, had recovered enough to find his voice. "Mrs. Reynolds, while I appreciate you're going through something personal..." "Oh, this stopped being just personal when they started charging their hotel rooms to the company card," I interrupted, pulling a folder from my handbag and sliding it across the table to him. Page 3 has the itemized list of corporate policy violations. Page 7 has the screenshots of Daniel promising Melissa a promotion in exchange for continuing their relationship. I believe that falls under quid pro quo sexual harassment in your HR handbook. Richard's face went from uncomfortable to thunderous as he flipped through the pages. The HR director leaned over to look, her expression growing more grave with each document. "Ms. Parker, is this accurate?" Richard asked Melissa, his voice dangerously quiet. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's not," he said. "I'll take that as a yes," Richard said. He turned to the HR director. "Janet, we'll need to address this immediately." "Already on it," Janet replied, standing. "Ms. Parker, please come with me to my office." Melissa remained frozen in her chair, Daniel's cashmere sweater clutched in her white-knuckled fist. "But I didn't. This isn't fair. He told me you were separated," she finally blurted, looking at me with desperate eyes. The room went silent again. I could feel everyone watching me, waiting for my reaction. I just smiled. Separated? While I was going through fertility treatments for our baby? While I was caring for my dying mother? That's interesting timing for a separation. Melissa's face crumpled. "He said you weren't intimate anymore, that you were focused on your career, that you didn't love him the way I did. And you believed him," I said softly. "Not a question, a statement of fact. Just like you believed him when he said you were special, that he'd never felt this way before, that he was going to leave me for you." A tear slid down her cheek, smearing her perfect makeup. For a fleeting moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Let me save you some time, Melissa. I'm his third wife. The first two also thought they were special until they found out about his affairs. It's a pattern, not a passion." That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Daniel. Of course. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and smiled. "Well, speak of the devil. Shall we see what he has to say?" I put the phone on speaker and answered. "Alex, where the hell is Melissa? We were supposed to meet an hour ago." The boardroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Every executive leaned forward slightly, not even pretending not to listen. "Hello, Daniel. I'm afraid Melissa can't come to the phone right now." She's in a meeting with your entire executive team. And me. We're having the most fascinating discussion about corporate ethics. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, what have you done? His voice was low, dangerous. I've simply delivered your belongings to your girlfriend, in front of your colleagues. Oh, and I shared that interesting presentation you've been working on. You know, the one documenting all the ways company money has been funding your midlife crisis. You had no right. Actually, as a corporate attorney specializing in ethics violations, I had every right. As your wife, I had every right. As a human being with dignity, I had every right. This is going to cost you in the divorce, he threatened. I laughed then, genuinely amused. Daniel, honey, I'm the one with the prenup protecting my assets. I'm the one with evidence of your infidelity and misuse of company funds. I'm the one who still has a job. So please, tell me again what this is going to cost me. Richard cleared his throat. Daniel, this is Richard. I suggest you come to my office immediately. Another long silence. Then the call ended. I pocketed my phone and surveyed the room. 24 faces stared back at me with expressions ranging from shock to grudging admiration. Melissa sat slumped in her chair, defeated, as Janet waited to escort her to HR. Well, I said brightly, I believe my delivery is complete. Thank you all for your attention. I apologize for the interruption to your meeting. As I turned to leave, Richard spoke up. Mrs. Reynolds. I paused, looking back over my shoulder. This company owes you an apology. What happened here was unacceptable, and we will address it with the seriousness it deserves. I nodded once, acknowledging his words without accepting them. I suggest you review your ethics training program. It seems to have some significant gaps. With that, I walked out, leaving Daniel's suitcases behind. I didn't need his baggage anymore, literally or figuratively. In the elevator going down, my phone buzzed again. Not Daniel this time, but my divorce attorney. It's done, I texted her, exactly as we discussed. Perfect, she replied. This should make the negotiations considerably smoother. By the time I reached my car, the adrenaline was wearing off. My hands trembled slightly as I inserted the key in the ignition. I'd done it. I'd faced them both down. I'd refused to be the silent, suffering wife. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror and hardly recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because I felt different. Lighter, clearer. As if I'd shed a skin I'd outgrown long ago. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. How could you humiliate me like that? You've ruined everything. M. I deleted it without responding. She wasn't worth my time or energy anymore. Neither of them was. Instead, I drove to the waterfront park where Daniel had proposed all those years ago. I sat on a bench facing the ocean and watched the waves crash against the shore, each one receding, only to gather strength and return. Again and again. Unstoppable. Just like me. 1 year later, I stood in my new kitchen, morning sunlight streaming through windows that faced east instead of west. Different view, different life. Better in ways I couldn't have imagined on that day, I wheeled suitcases into a boardroom and changed everything. The aftermath had been swift and comprehensive. Daniel was terminated for ethics violations the same day. Melissa was transferred to a different department, then quietly let go 3 months later during a restructuring. The divorce was finalized in record time. Daniel's lawyer advised him to agree to my terms rather than risk further exposure of his conduct. I sold the waterfront condo, too many ghosts there, and bought a charming craftsman house in a neighborhood I'd always loved, but Daniel had deemed not prestigious enough. I planted a garden, adopted a rescue dog, reclaimed spaces in my life that had been compressed to make room for Daniel's oversized ego and constant needs. My mother's death left a hole that would never completely heal, but I found myself talking to her often, especially in the garden. You were right about him, I'd tell her as I pruned roses or pulled weeds. You saw what I couldn't see. She had never openly criticized Daniel, but there had been moments, a tightening around her eyes when he checked his phone during family dinners, a concerned glance when he dismissed my opinions. She had known, in that way mothers do. Professionally, I thrived. My handling of my own situation had inadvertently become a calling card of sorts. Companies began seeking me out for consulting on ethics programs and harassment policies. The attorney who walks the walk, one client called me. I embraced the specialty, finding purpose in helping organizations create cultures where people like Daniel couldn't operate with impunity. As for children, I'd decided to pursue that dream on my own terms. I was in the early stages of the adoption process, excited about the possibility of becoming a mother, without the shadow of Daniel's conditional love hanging over the experience. My phone chimed with a calendar reminder. Lunch with Janet, my private investigator turned friend. We met monthly now, comparing notes on our respective fields and enjoying the easy camaraderie that had developed between us. As I gathered my things to leave, I caught sight of the small frame on my entryway table, a quote I'd had custom-made after the divorce was final. Sometimes the heaviest things we carry are the stories we never tell. I'd told my story, loudly, publicly, unapologetically. And in doing so, I'd set down a burden I didn't even know I'd been carrying. The weight of others' expectations about how a betrayed wife should behave. The pressure to be dignified in my suffering. The unspoken rule that women should absorb pain privately to protect men from the consequences of their actions. Walking out to my car, I breathed in the crisp autumn air. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't immediately recognize. I saw Daniel last night at the Capitol Grill, with a woman who looked barely 25. Some things never change. I realized it was from a former neighbor. For a moment, I felt a twinge, not of jealousy or regret, but of pity for this new woman who didn't yet know what she was getting into. I typed back, I hope she delivers his bag somewhere even more public than I did. Then I deleted the exchange, put my phone away, and drove to meet Janet. Daniel's ongoing saga wasn't my story anymore. I had closed that book and opened a new one where I was both the author and the heroine. Over lunch, Janet raised her glass in a toast. Two women who refused to be footnotes in their own lives. I clinked my glass against hers, smiling, and to suitcases delivered exactly where they belong. We laughed, and in that moment of shared understanding, I felt the final pieces click into place. The humiliation I'd once felt had transformed into something else entirely. Freedom. The kind that comes from standing in your truth, consequences be damned. That afternoon, as I walked through my garden checking on the late-blooming dahlias, I thought about that day in the boardroom. How terrified I'd been underneath my composed exterior. How uncertain about what would come next. If I could go back and whisper something to that version of myself, it would be simple. This moment isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a better one. And it was. It absolutely